morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. This is at the heart of our problem. In the early 1980s, a Japanese scholar, Ken Yamamoto, who had lived in Zimbabwe and written about it on numerous occasions, said that Zimbabwe had the potential to become the South Korea of Africa. Peace with itself, prosperous and democratic. Well, it wasn't long before that dream was forgotten. We took the wrong turn. We became the North Korea of Africa, the epitome of a failed state. On the screen is Africa's Democratic Index. Call it what you like. All it is a measure of good governance. And one of those criteria to be taken into consideration is how well the country has been running, able to run free, fair, and credible elections. Zimbabwe, as you can see on the map there, this is being marked out of 10. It's not performed well at all. We are on 2.92. Zambia is well ahead of us, 5.8. Botswana in the SADC region is doing the best. It's on 7.37. Botswana, ever since its independence, it has managed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. South Africa, since the end of apartheid in 1994, has managed to run free, fair, and credible elections. Zimbabwe, we have failed to do so. The whole concept of one man, one vote, while Zanu PF officials promoted it before independence, after independence, they quickly forgot about it. Indeed, the 1980 elections, Zanu PF came from the Lancaster House talks, where they met with all the other stakeholders to agree on the way forward. The agreement was that both Zanu PF and PF and ZAPU and the Rhodesian army will withdraw their fighters from the field so that the elections are conducted in a free and fair environment. By the time they came back, they arrived back in Zimbabwe, Mugabe and his colleagues had already made up their mind. They were going to disregard that undertaking, and they retained a lot of their freedom fighters in the field instead of sending them to the designated assembly points. They told their operatives that they were to campaign and tell the people in no uncertain terms that if Zanu PF was to lose the elections, the Bush war would continue. Needless to say, the people voted to end the Bush war. Unknown to them, they were also to lose their right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country, among many other rights they've lost along the way. Because as soon as Zanu PF got his feet under the desk, the regime started creating a de facto one-party state. The same de facto one-party state that has ruled the country to this day. Zanu PF had no illusions of allowing the people of Zimbabwe to be free. Mugabe and his colleagues from the word go were determined that they should exercise power, absolute power, and the idea of being voted out of office by the electorate was completely out of the question. And throughout, ever since independence, they have deliberately kept the rural people poor and living in abject poverty for their own selfish political ends. There's no doubt that Zimbabwe, we have a serious problem of poverty. We cannot deny that reality. The people themselves have been powerless to stop the regime. Here is what Margaret Dongo, herself a former Zanu PF MP, has said about Zimbabwe's rural electorate, particularly.
They have wrong priorities, especially the current government. How can you go and build an airport which services a few people, and the majority are the elite and the so-called investors? Look at the rural. I made you come to interview me because I wanted you to have the experience of the roads that we are using. If we go today to our hospital there, you feel pity with that's a hospital in a rural area. If we go to our clinic, you feel pity. We have no piped water here. Do you know the reason why the rural people vote for Zanu PF? One, they're intimidated. Two, the policy is that the rural people should remain poor and subservient to the government. They should remain poor, because if they remain poor, they continue singing the song for their master. This is why these people have been impoverished. It's for a reason. Because at the moment, if you economic empower these people, they'll go out of hand. Zanu PF will never have control over them.
Fact that some people have not wanted to admit to. But admit it or not, it is a historic fact. The only time Zimbabweans have ever come closest to holding free, fair, and credible elections was in 2008. SADC leaders had piled up the pressure on the regime to adopt an electoral process that allowed people to have a meaningful say. and the regime had reluctantly agreed. And in the March 2008 vote, the people for the first time felt they were free to vote for whoever they liked. But before the results could be announced, Zanu PF realized that they were going to lose those elections. And Mnangagwa and some of his Joint Operation Command colleagues stepped in and stopped ZEC from declaring the results. Here is Mnangagwa boasting of his exploits that year.
2008 patakaita ma-elections pakaposa papinda Tsvangirai ndandiri election agent ya president. Ma-results abuda tiri party headquarters vamutasa vanga vari secretary vedu ve-administration vamutasa muripi ndafona ndiri kwarusapi komogwenda kwarusapi seka ma-results achibuda kudai vanga aiwa zvako izvo Mnangagwa ndezvako endaenda kumusha ofisi vanga vabisa zvinhu zvavo zvose watofunga kuti zani yadini yaparara. President ofona zvakamira sei kati ndomamira zvakaita takatodini kateda sei manje mama ndikati abvudzai baba nditaurira baba gadzirai politburo cabinet musarangarira zvimwe zvinhu gadzirai chi cabinet asi nangoda kuti muzive kuti 2008 ma-results abuda vamutasa vakatiza.
As a country we face a generational transition. Vana vesa vari kuma below 35 they are crying out for help. The country is in a mess. Arusurufaro. We know we are inheriting a mess. We know this country has been left with nothing.
I'm assuring you that starting from tomorrow, you'll see a different nation from what you have seen or read on the news about these results and everything. Where we are going ahead there, the situation will be very different. What we said to our people, they could not see with their own eyes. We are going to act as we see it fit. We are prepared to go the whole distance.
Zimbabwe witnessed that year, 2008, the worst violence, election-related violence in its history. What Mnangagwa was boasting about was that he and his Joint Operation Command colleagues, who composed the top brass in the army, the police, the CIO, and the prison services. They organized the war veterans and the Zanu PF militia in a military-style operation called Operation Mafotera Papi. And its primary purpose was to punish people who having rejected Zanu PF in the March 2008 vote. Over 500 people were killed during those 3 months of the runoff. Hundreds of thousands were raped, beaten, had their properties destroyed, and millions were internally displaced. That is what Mnangagwa did in 2008. And that is what he was boasting about in that video. It is a dark chapter in the country's history. Indeed, when it comes to Mnangagwa, it is one, just one. Because as we know, we wind back or go back to Kukurawundi. Mnangagwa was heavily involved in that. 2017, he was one of the core conspirators in the military coup that toppled Mugabe. And ever since he took over office, he has been rigging elections. And each time the people tried to protest, he has given out instructions to shoot to kill. What has been shocking here is that given that history, there are some people who still want to pretend that what has been happening in Zimbabwe is normal. Here is Chris Mnangagwa, the party spokesperson, praising Mnangagwa for his involvement in that 2008 Operation Mafotera Papi.
The Northeast, you understand?
Okay, so this taking you back to 2008. Yes. 2008, who then becomes the intellectual dawn?
Look, a lot
ideologically.
The person who had been driving the ideological aspect of Zanu, but at a more practical level, was the current president.
Okay.
Yes. Remember, he goes to war.
So you're saying he's the intellectual
He became the intellectual.
But you would not consider him as an intellectual.
I see more, he is a doer.
Yes. So that's not the intellectual.
That's why he has got smart. He is so intelligent that he cottons onto new ideas very quickly. And he analyzes the situation faster to find a solution. It's very practical. Okay. With the challenge during the integration
if I get you, so you're saying Chiwenga becomes the Tongogara, and then Mnangagwa becomes the Chisepo.
There's no way you can try to make those comparisons.
Hey, help us.
No. You see, what you understand, the capabilities are different. Tongogara is among African military geniuses.
No, we're saying in 2008.
No, I wouldn't. No, you see, no, I wouldn't. You
wouldn't. Okay, so how would you put it across? How would you put the dynamism between Tongogara and Chitepo? Because you're saying we then had that in 2008.
Yes.
So who are the two?
Mnangagwa basically recalls the political commissars from Chitepo College.
Okay.
After the crisis of 2008. So those political commissars who had been politicizing the people, organizing the people, and organizing the army during the war, he calls them back. And I was the vice principal.
So he marries the two, the military and the ideology, into one office. And that's in 2008.
That's 2008. That's where the revenge of the guerrilla, of the war veterans, because the party had essentially run aground because of ideological poverty and organizational incapacity. But now with the crisis, the Western countries were now saying we can use the white farmers to reorganize, because they said, we didn't know that these people just wanted to come into town and live large. So, now we can. Then why can't we also align our...
So why did it take them from 2008? Why did it take another 10 years, almost 10 years, to then effect that revolution?
Well, look, there's another element about Mugabe. He is good at posturing. So he postures as a radical Pan-Africanist, which then estranges him from the Western countries. You understand?
Yeah.
So under that garb of a radical Pan-Africanist, he is being attacked by the West. So you cannot then disown somebody who is being attacked by your enemy. You understand? Because how do you disown somebody who is being attacked by your enemy? So we had to close ranks around him because he became the victim of a Western assault. So in war is unite all the forces which can be aligned.
All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's speed up to today. So you're saying that actually the ideology is within the current president.
Yes.
Now, the current
And how would you characterize that ideology?
He comes much more from the Deng Xiaoping school.
Okay.
Yes. You see, he spends years in jail, so he understands nationalist politics.
Yes,
but
for sure.
He trained in China in the early formation of the army. So he has got the longest history
with the Chinese.
He started as Zipra.
Okay.
Remember when he went to Egypt, he was one of the Zipra cadres. Then there was a split, and he's the one who moves to the other camp.
Well, we can stop it right there. The very idea that anyone can praise what happened in 2008 goes to show how little people like Mnangagwa really comprehend Zimbabwe's problems. What happened in 2008 was Zanu PF punishing the people because they had dared to vote and rejected the regime. That is what happened then. The regime has never given the people of Zimbabwe a meaningful say in the governance of the country. And the nearest they ever got to doing so was 2008, the March vote. And the regime's reaction to that was to mobilize the war veterans, the militia, underwritten by personalities deployed from the army, the police, the CIO, and prison services, who carried out the heavy lifting duties of kidnapping people and killing them. This is what happened. Now we have got people like Mnangagwa trying to make it appear as if the war veterans who were involved. We saw in that video clip one of the war veteran leaders, Tamlan Swanda, boasting that they were going to punish people, and they did punish people. We as a country have failed to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. And this is why Zimbabwe is a failed state. That is a reality that we cannot run away from. To think that somehow Mnangagwa is a genius, a strategist, is to completely miss the point. Mnangagwa is just a murderous buffoon who has seized the country's power, political power, and has abused them for his own and his cronies' selfish ends. Zimbabwe is looking at 2008, the hope that we can somehow end this case of rigged elections and bad governance. That process is not going to be easy. I'll be the first one to admit it. Because Zanu PF right now has got total political control in Parliament and in the Senate and in all the institutions of government. Zanu PF will never reform itself out of office. That is a given. Alas, the opposition had the opportunity to implement reforms and they sold out. And they've been participating in these flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy out of greed. And they are going to do so. In 2028. The only hope of ending this Zanu PF dictatorship now is to make sure that the millions of opposition supporters who are easily conned into believing that the opposition can win rigged elections, even after 44 years of Zanu PF rigging the elections. They have got to be taught that it is sheer futility participating in flawed elections only to give Zanu PF legitimacy. That is our only hope. And I think we must push that agenda, the seriousness and the agency it demands. As for our friend Mnangagwa, I think he's just a toad singing for his supper. Because Mnangagwa is not a strategist, nor an intellectual of any caliber at all. He's just a murderous buffoon who has the control of power in the country and is holding the nation to ransom. But holding the nation to ransom does not make him a genius. He's not a genius, he's not a strategist. He's just a murderous fool. Thank you very much. Have a good night.